Do you know that taking dividends out of your UK limited company can actually be illegal? Many business owners are typically unaware that the way and manner in which they take dividends out of their UK company can actually be marked as illegal. Now, despite the fact that dividends are typically one of the best and tax efficient ways of actually taking money out of your UK limited company, it's important that you're doing this in the right way. It's important that you're doing this in a legal sense and also in a way that complies with the UK's tax laws. Now, before I break down some of the circumstances in which dividends can be classed as illegal, as well as the consequences of doing this, I think it's important to actually understand what the rules say in relation to the payment of dividends when it comes to a UK company. Now, it's very important that if you're a UK company, it's important to understand that dividends can only be paid out of retained profits. Okay, so if there are no profits that the company has actually made, then one of the circumstances in which you'll be putting your company in the position to making illegal dividends is basically distributing those dividends despite knowing that that company has not made a profit. Some of the situations in which the dividends you pay out can actually be classed as illegal can include, but is not limited to, where you pay out dividends despite knowing that the company has actually not made any profits. And then two, where you're paying out dividends despite knowing that the company cannot actually meet its financial obligations. Now, another situation that the dividends you're taking out of that UK company can actually potentially be marked as illegal is where you're failing to actually provide the necessary documents or evidence that would actually show that the payment that you made out of your company was a dividend payout. Another scenario in which the dividends that you're paying out can actually be classed as illegal is where you're not paying the same or an equitable amount of dividends to the shareholders that you have within the company. Okay, so according to the proportion of shares that each of those shareholders actually hold within the company. So it's important that if you are looking to actually make dividend payouts, you make sure that you are taking into consideration some of the consequences in which these dividend payout might potentially be classed as illegal, and you're taking the right steps to actually avoid that happening. Now, let's talk about the consequences that can actually arise as a result of paying illegal dividends. Now, one of the major consequences that can actually arise as a result of you paying out illegal dividends is that you might potentially have to pay much higher taxes on those dividends to HMRC. Okay, so you might be forced to pay those dividends back and actually pay corporation tax on what you initially took out as dividends. Now, for those of you who may be unaware, the rate for corporation tax in terms of the amount that you pay on your corporation tax is significantly higher than the dividend tax rate. So this is obviously going to be quite of significant importance if you're someone who has taken out an illegal dividend but now has to actually pay that back to HMRC in the form of higher corporation taxes. Now, the other consequence that can arise as a result of this is where your powers, okay, the authority of the company is actually revoked and you are prevented from actually issuing out dividends to your shareholders. It's important to also understand that if you found yourself in a situation where you've regularly been paying out illegal dividends, then you're potentially setting yourself and your company up for increased scrutiny, increased potential investigations by either Companies House and or HMRC. When it comes to paying out dividends, the legal side of things can be very complex. So as a business owner, as a UK company director, it's going to be extremely important that you are able to take into consideration what the UK company law says regarding the payment of dividends, but also what the tax law says regarding the payment of dividends. Now, a main thing to consider whenever you're thinking about payment of dividends as a company owner is going to be to focus around whether or not that company has actually made any profits. Okay, are there any retained profits out of which that company can actually make its dividend payouts from? Another thing you're going to want to consider is also going to be any potential taxes that are due on the company's profits. You also want to think about what your company's cash flow is looking like and how the payment of dividends might potentially affect that business's cash flow. It's also important that you are taking into consideration how the payment of dividends can potentially impact your business's ability to meet its financial obligations. Now, hopefully that's giving you some clarity around the payment of dividends for a UK company. And if you're looking for some assistance or guidance in relation to your particular business, then please do make sure you use the links in the description box below to contact us for more information. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.